A common statement among the loved ones of the victims of crimes that become cold cases is that they thought the cases would never be solved. But in recent years, it appears that this is less and less the fate for many of these cases where the trail of information had long run cold, because new advances are capable of digging up clues which had evaded detection and leading investigators right to the truth, even in cases that go back multiple decades. What is up, Iwu crew? Over the past few years, more cold cases than ever are finally being solved, bringing relief and closure to the bereaved families. Today, we are going to talk about 5 amazing solved cold cases in 2020. Christine Jessop. One of Canada's most notorious and troubling cold cases was finally solved in 2020. The case of Christine Jessop rocked the country as a whole, leaving many parents disturbed and terrified after the 9-year-old's fate became public knowledge. Today, however, the infamous case has a conclusion, but it is one that leaves many feeling that true justice will never be served. On October 3rd, 1984, Christine Jessop was kidnapped from her home in Queensville, near the Greater Toronto Area. Christine's mother and older brother, Kenny, left Christine at home on her own when they traveled to visit her father, Bob, where he was in custody at a detention center. As Christine was only 9, her mother had deemed that she was too young to see her father behind bars and to be exposed to the other inmates of the detention center. But later that day, they returned home to find that Christine was missing. When she couldn't be found, her mother called the police saying that her daughter had been taken. Once the police were notified about the abduction, searches were organized, and much of the community rallied together to find the little girl. Sadly, no trace of her could be found for months, but still, her family didn't give up hope. Unfortunately, in this case, there would be no happy ending. Her body was discovered on New Year's Eve, 3 months after she disappeared, 31 miles from her home. She had been assaulted and stabbed. At first, there were no leads in finding Christine's killer. Yet, it was less than a year after Christine's death that the police had an enormous break in the case. In April 1985, they arrested and charged Guy Paul Morin with her murder. Morin was her next-door neighbor and had become a suspect during the investigation because of his close proximity. Though the public was initially relieved to have someone they regarded as a horrific killer behind bars, Morin's trial did not go as expected. First, there was a mistrial, which then resulted in an appeal that spanned over multiple years. It wasn't until 1992, a full 7 years after his initial conviction, that Morin was charged with first-degree murder. He was sentenced to a life term in prison. But the saga of Christine's death did not end there. And though no one knew it at the time, the frustrations of the case were only just beginning. After Morin spent 18 months in prison, evidence from Christine's body was examined, and it was shockingly determined that Morin couldn't have been her killer. He was officially proven to be innocent and released from prison after the wrongful conviction. Following Morin's release, an inquiry began to understand how an innocent man had been convicted of a crime he didn't commit. The inquiry showed that the police had mismanaged the case in their eagerness to find and arrest a culprit for the crime that had garnered the attention of the entire nation, resulting in Morin being awarded $1.25 million for his wrongful conviction. The inquiry also led to many alterations in how the police in Canada operated during murder investigations. After Morin was cleared of the crime, a task force was assigned to the case, which interviewed over 300 men, each time collecting and comparing DNA against a semen sample found in Christine's underwear. Though the task force initially appeared promising, the case soon went completely cold. Police ran out of suspects, and the task force was disbanded in 1998. Christine's family wasn't sure if they would ever receive any more leads, and maybe never learn the identity of her killer. However, in October 2020, it was a genetic genealogy website that finally brought a suspect's name to light. Police sent the degraded residue of the semen stains they found to the American lab Othram Incorporated to verify the DNA and create a full profile of their suspect. The lab then uploaded the results to GED Match and Family Tree DNA, where they established a family tree as well as compared the DNA against a sample taken from the Center for Forensic Science. After 6 months of research, they finally had a match and a name for a suspect 36 years after Christine had died. Calvin Hoover has since been named as the main suspect. Interestingly, during the initial investigations, Hoover was never even considered to be a possible suspect. Both of Christine's parents were understandably relieved to finally receive this update, and said that they had worried they wouldn't live to see the day their daughter's killer was caught. Hoover had been 28 at the time of Christine's death, and Christine's brother, Kenny, revealed that Hoover's wife at the time, Heather, had worked with their father, Bob, and that she was a friend of their mother's during the period before Christine's death. Kenny also said that Hoover had been considered a friend of their family and even visited their home. Even more shocking, Kenny recalled that Hoover had been present at the many searches for Christine over the first few months when she vanished, and that he had even attended her funeral and come to their house for the wake after. Morin, the man who had been wrongfully accused of the crime, said that he had been notified of the development in the case by police who came to his house. He revealed, "I can say that I am happy that there's closure for the Jessop's peace of mind. It's something I was always expecting." Morin's family has been speaking out about their relief to see him fully exonerated by science. Though he had been completely cleared, the shadow of suspicion had still followed him for decades, until now that the real killer has been named. Though there was finally a break in one of the most notorious Canadian cold cases, few people are celebrating. Hoover died in 2015. If he had been alive when the investigation broke, he would have been arrested and questioned. But as he is deceased, the investigation is meeting many roadblocks. For now, Hoover is being referred to as the main suspect and the presumed killer, as he cannot be formally charged posthumously. Though the public has condemned Hoover as Christine's killer, the police investigation is still underway, and they are attempting to build a timeline of Hoover's whereabouts in accordance with Christine's death. There are many questions that are still left unanswered, though the case is finally closer to being concluded. Detective Steve Smith from the Homicide Cold Case Unit has said that the investigation has actually really kicked into full steam now. Police are now looking into the details of Hoover's life over these past 3 decades, and specifically trying to find any other possible victims, as they are not ruling out the chance that he could have been involved in other crimes. The investigation has also revealed that they have been flooded with tips. Hoover's own family, his ex-wife Heather, and their sons have been cooperating as best they can with the police, though they themselves were shocked and devastated with the news. They have provided help with everything the police have asked of them. Bob Jessop, Christine's father, spoke out recently and said that he doesn't really remember Hoover or how he was involved in their lives, saying, "It seems to me that he must have had some reason for it. I can't figure it out. What would it have been? I really don't know." The conclusion of this case may bring some closure to Christine's family, as they now know the name of her killer. But they may never receive some of the answers they desperately want, nor see justice fully served in the sense of Hoover having to acknowledge his crimes and face the consequences. Carla Jan Walker. One of Texas's oldest cold cases was solved in 2020. For 46 years, the shocking death of Carla Jan Walker was left unsolved.